Hello, hello.
Hey, hey, can you hear me?
Yo, I can hear you, dude. What's up? How you doing?
Hey, doing great. Thank you for agreeing to join me for this, man.
Yeah, no worries. We're chilling.
Yeah. So, yeah, I know we've got a quick little half hour here, so I'm gonna get right into it, and hopefully I'm not killing the mood here. I feel like we were in a like a chilling, like fun, shooting the shit kind of mood with the FFA that you just ran. Now I'm
Oh,
gonna
that's my whole stream,
serious
dude. That's all good.
learning.
My whole stream's like that, so it's totally fine.
Fair enough, fair enough. Yeah, so fantastic. So, I mean, I feel like pretty much everybody knows, but in case somebody's living under a rock, I mean, the concept of bronze to GM has existed in the scene for a long time, but your bronze to GM series on YouTube has really kind of brought something different. So, would you want to maybe describe that just in your own words for for anybody who doesn't know?
Yeah. So I feel like not to discredit anyone else's series in any way, so I'm not going to name drop any names or go too specific about anything here. But I feel like the opportunity I saw that I had for myself was that not many people had a series that was super specific and drawn out, step by step, super basic, in a super basic format of how to like learn how to play the game. It was usually like there other people had other methods of things with that. I felt like just overcomplicated the game in my opinion. So and the way I tried to make my own series was I made a series again. I like other people have done it, but it's called Bronze GM series, and the design of it is I play the games myself at the league that I think what the players there would be capable of, and it would be as if they were playing efficiently. So
Right.
like what I do in bronze is what a bronze player would be capable of doing if they knew what they were supposed to do. It's not like I'm playing like a
Mhm.
GM player in bronze going, yeah, just do that and you'll be fine. So yeah, I just try to make it realistic essentially.
Right, yeah. Is that at all hard for you to kind of get into that mental space or like so I can imagine, I mean, you're a competitive guy, right? You can get in scenarios where it's like, "Oh shit, I want to win. I want to, beat this, stupid cheese or whatever." And it's almost like you got to hold back a little bit, right? For it to be real. Like how do you handle that?
I would like the amount of people that like it and appreciate what I'm doing there. That is really, I guess, makes it easy to not like feel like I have to
Mhm.
win because
Yeah.
the idea that I have behind it is I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes when I lose in that series, because I genuinely try to make it real, I don't try to make it like, oh, I'm starting to
Mhm.
lose. Okay, let's kick it up a notch and play like a jam player now, and then just kill them. I try to make it super true to what you're capable of, and it does make me lose sometimes. I even get sniped sometimes, where like someone like I one of the dudes I played in bronze, I play him in GM. His name was Zin, I think, and he sniped me like 2 times in the series, and he like played like it was a GM game. He just charged
Right,
all in
yeah.
me, and I'm over there being like, just make workers, just make. Oh, we're dead, and I'm like, all right, this is annoying. And then you get the crowd of people that go, oh my god, you lost in bronze, aren't you GM?
Right.
And I'm like, okay, guys, just listen, okay. I know it seems bad on paper, and my friends give me shit like this all the time, so it's easy for me to like bounce it right off and not really take it too serious. Where I'm not like, I didn't actually lose. I'm not a fucking bronze player, and get all salty about it. Like it's fine, it's whatever. But just explaining in a simple way, going, yeah, guys, I'm just trying to make this series real and not show you how a GM player can win in Bronze League every single time. I'm trying to make it to where a series is like this is real to what you could be capable of doing, and I never said once that you're supposed to have a 100% win rate, but it's
Right.
definitely, if you follow the series, it's going to be a positive win rate that will always make you advance if you can keep up with what the
Mhm.
series tells you to do.
Yeah, totally. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so it takes a lot of
Have you
patience.
seen
Sorry, I was going to say the last bit was
Oh yeah.
it
Mhm.
takes a lot of patience to not go down the road of being annoyed, but yeah,
Right.
it's that's about it.
Yeah, I mean that's content creation stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
there's always, guy in the chat, guy in the YouTube comments.
Mm-hmm.
Um okay, so and I'm sorry, this is I don't mean for this to be like an interview, but it
That's all
kind of
good.
is a little bit of one cuz I just I'm so like really curious about so many aspects of this. So, for your folks, you got, a ton of people watching your stream right now who maybe don't know me. Some background for you all. Like I've kind of been sort of studying how people learn in StarCraft for, I don't know, like over a year now. And I've talked to a lot of people. We've like read some books. We have a little book club thing. And I've gotten, a few different perspectives. But what's interesting to me is vibe stuff in particular has a certain special something that like differs actually in some ways from the book club. I had a guy flame me in the YouTube comments to say I was bashing you when we had Pig on the book club. So
Yeah.
shout out to guy in the YouTube comments for giving me the inspiration to have Vibe on. Um,
Okay.
but no, I mean it's interesting because some of this flies in the face of some of the conventional wisdom, but like you have this overwhelming body of evidence, right, that suggests that I mean not only has it worked for you, but I've got somebody in my chat right now saying Vibe got me to D1, right,
Yeah.
and and so it's like the results are there, right? So I'm just hyper curious, and I'm gonna be grilling you, and I'm sorry if it feels like too interviewy and not like a chat.
No worries.
That one of the big things I'm wondering is like, have you seen people go through sort of your program and get stuck, right? Like, do they, is there a certain league where people kind of just hang? And do you have thoughts about like what causes that?
Um, the biggest one, the biggest problem that people had with my series is players that play Terran specifically, and they would get to
Mm,
Diamond through the easy format of Hellion and Thor, and then as soon as they're
mhm,
in Diamond League, I now I'm kind of switching into Battle Mech, which is a totally different composition with Micro now, and I also would now add in Bio all out of nowhere because I think Bio, honestly, Bio below Platinum, like if you're doing the format of the series of just A move, A move, A move, literally never touch
mhm,
units, Bio is super vulnerable all the time if you don't stim pack or you don't like try to
mm,
micro at all. Bio can
yeah,
just like run into 10 Banes and suddenly you have like 40 Marines die and it's super inefficient.
right.
Uh, so a lot of players did get stuck with Terran specifically in around the diamond range, like lower diamond, because they're like, it's such a hard hurdle for me to come over, like just going from Thor Hellbat to now trying to play Bio, and it's totally different play style. I'm not used to it. It feels overwhelming, and I'm like, yeah, I can see that. I can see your point, and I've been thinking about ways for the next time I make a series to like better circumvent
Mhm,
that, like doing an entire Bio series. But how can I make Bio work better for lower level players too, so it's not so marine focused where it's like they're just gonna die. Because the last thing that I want
right.
people to do as well is to micro. That's why I think a lot of people can approach my series super easy, is because micro is the key to multi. Like micro is like, it opens up a whole other aspect of the game, which is not just micro. It's multitasking, and
Yeah.
multitasking is something nobody can handle until you're up to a certain level of like a par or a standard, and that standard is
Hmm.
somewhere in diamond for most people. So
Yeah.
yeah, so like if you micro and anything below that, like plat, gold, bronze, silver, whatever, players tend to like. I see it all the time when I coach as well. Every time I see anyone do anything that results with anything that requires micro, so Zergling builds, Bio builds, like Blink Stalker builds, Stargate Opener builds, anything that just takes micro, like effort.
Yep.
Every single time their attack always starts, I always go, okay, I haven't even seen it yet, and I go, okay, look for a second, let's watch the production tab, let's see what goes on throughout this whole period of the attack, and then on average, it's like this attack's 37 seconds long, and people don't realize that's how long they flew around someone's base with like an oracle, but it was
Right.
genuinely like 37 seconds, and they killed maybe 4 workers with it, and then they died eventually. And they thought they were
Yep.
doing great because they're like, I'm bobbing and weaving my oracle, dodging missile turrets. I almost got hit by that widow mine, but didn't. And I killed 1 more SCV because of it. And then I dodged like 2 Marines over there and ran into 3 more over here. And eventually I died. And it's like, well, you didn't
Right.
macro a single thing for 37 seconds.
Right.
And your money's at like 1,800 now. So that's fucking not good.
Yep. Yeah, when I was getting coached really actively by H-Jax back in the day, he would always joke about this whenever somebody was like really styling on me. This would be maybe like high plat, low diamond
Okay.
ish.
Yeah.
He would just be like, dude, just make workers. He's in my ear in Discord. Like, just make workers. I promise you, you will have made more workers than he killed by the time this attack is over. Because he's
Exactly.
not doing anything
Yep.
but look at that Reaper or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So okay, you said something that really fascinated me, which is, you kind of get people up to this par level, and then you introduce the micro, which is not just the micro, but the multitasking.
Uh-huh.
And this part, I got this far on my own. So you said to your viewers before I came on that I was a master's. I'm not. I got to D1. I haven't cracked masters
Okay.
yet.
Okay.
And one of the big things for me is actually this. So like, I can do the micro in isolation. I can do the macro in isolation. The figuring out, how to switch between the two is like insanely difficult for me. So have you built anything around that? Maybe I need to watch. I haven't watched the master's videos yet. Maybe I need to watch more videos.
I think the easiest way to introduce someone to learning how to multitask is teaching someone that correct micro, only. Let me say it like this. This would make more sense. If you micro during a fight, it only makes sense if you really know your shit and you know. Like, if I were to ask you off the top of your head, how much damage does a stalker do to a non-armored and an armored unit? And again, you don't have to answer any of these. I'm not putting you on the spot here. But just for anyone,
Sure.
like, rhetorical questions for anyone thinking about it. How much damage does a stalker do, armored and non-armored? How much health does it have? And shields? How much passive armor does it have? How about a zealot? How about a sentry? How about a adept? What's the cooldown of the adept's shade ability? What's the cooldown of a blink ability? What's the cooldown of a charge? What's the move speed of charge? What's the damage of an immortal? What's all the stats of an immortal? What's all the stats of a colossus? What's all the stats of blah, blah, blah? If you don't know these numbers, you don't know how to properly micro because you don't know what the fuck you're looking at. You're like, it would make sense to back up? Question mark? Maybe? I don't know. Let's try that. And then, you may or may not make a good call. And that's where the randomness comes in of like, sometimes you might play a game and go, wow, I really won that fight. Or wow, that fight went really bad and I didn't realize it was going to go that bad. Holy crap, that was terrible. But once you know these numbers and you can literally look at a fight with a high success rate and go, yeah, that's a win for me. Or no, that's a loss. Let's avoid it. If you can't do that realistically and you just guess every time, it means you should not be microing during a fight. And what it means instead, it means you're not ready for it yet. And what it means instead is one thing I try to develop in Diamond League heavily is called pre-fight micro. And what it is like, you go, okay, instead of A-moving my entire army into a single file line into my opponent's base, how about I spread my concave out longer to increase surface area of engagement? So now instead of having 3 of my 10 units in a line to shoot and then one at a time they all like find a spot afterwards, you get like 2 sets of 5 and they all engage at the same time. And suddenly all my units they're all optimally being used because I'm not losing. Like as you engage with, let's say you have 10 units and like you engage with 3 and then suddenly 5 and then 7 and then 2 die and it goes back down to 5 and then 2 more engage. Like you don't actually have full uptime ever at any point in time. Whereas if you have full uptime initially, because all you did was a pre-spread concave and it's just one click, go there, like green box after your army, click, A move, you're good. Suddenly you just did a setup of a fight that makes your army like twice as valuable as it was before. And then that fight will always go better for you because of that. Because you limit damage you take and you maximize damage you deal. And understanding that how to set up a fight is so easy because it's not during the moment where you're being pressured. Where you feel like you're like in the crisis management moment. So an initial micro, learning how to initially micro is literally pre-fight engagements. Which is all I did in Diamond. All I did was I started introducing a command, like not the command, but the idea of pre-fight splits, like flanks and concaves, and then how to understand what a concave and a convex is. So looking at your terrain and not going, okay, let's walk into that choke point and get my units all bunched up while he's super nice spread out on the other side with a superior concave of like 40% larger, just destroying me. So paying attention to like your environment, and then also the idea of push and pull. And push and pull is literally, if you can't break your opponent initially with just rolling them over with one push, you can push on 2 sides, and you push one side, you wait till they push you, and you pull them away, and then you push the other side when they're not there, and then they come back, and then you go in again. You literally avoid their army, and you push and pull their base with their army inside of it. So they go defend one side, defend the other side, defend the other side, and you just watch your opponent go left and right while they just lose bases. And it's crazy. The bigger their base gets, the easier it is to do that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. That's something that you can kind of only take advantage of if you're doing sort of the strategic piece, which you kind of recommend, right? Which is to sort of take the game later and later and sort of try to win off the back of your macro. That type of strategy gets better the later the game goes.
Yep.
So, okay. Go ahead.
I want to say one more thing as well with that whole concept.
Yeah.
So keep in mind too, pre-fight micro, always, it's consistent. There is no RNG factor here. It's always the same thing because you're using terrain that does not change. You're not using an opponent who does change it, essentially. But pre-fight micro always takes up to anywhere between like 2 seconds to 5 seconds to set up, and you're done. And that's it. Every time it's going to do that. So that's literally a very small chunk of time that deviates you from multitasking your macro. And once the fight starts, you go back to macroing during the fight. But people who try to micro before they can handle it, how I was talking about how like you're supposed to understand numbers. If you don't understand what's capable of what, and you over micro, because that is a thing in StarCraft 2 where people actually they could win a fight, but they over micro units in a way where they throw the fight. If you do that kind of shit constantly, and you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna split this and split that and focus fire this and pull that one back and then load that up into a prism and unload that over there and then rewarp in new units over here and send a disruptor shot over there, and you're just trying to play super fancy, and you over micro, and at that point the longer it takes you to set up a fight, the more time you're not multitasking, and the majority of players, even in like masters, do not multitask micro macro at the same time. Micro macro during a micro actual fight is something that really only pro gamers do, honestly, or like high just ladder players like 5,200 MMR or like 5,300, like the non-pros but like close to pro do that, I guess, as well. But yeah, it's to micro fight properly. You like it if you're in the middle of a fight and you're doing one thing after another, you do commands that take all of about 1 second to do, and then you, based on what's happening, you need to make a judgment call of if you have to do it again, if it makes sense to do it again, or if it makes sense to set up another macro round. And you have to really know your shit to like understand if it's what should be happening at that point in time.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like the longer you've gone without doing it, the worse it becomes to keep spending that time microing. Right. Like even if you're getting the same value off of the micro, like you almost have to be getting more from the micro for it to keep being worth it, kind of thing.
Yeah. A good way to explain it, like in a simple way, would be, I would much rather have the same army twice that kills half my opponent's army the first time and then rolls them over the second time. Like I lose the fight the first time, but I kill a lot, but I macro a full other army and then I have enough to like literally win the fight the second time. That's better than over microing the same army the first time and getting like 15% more efficiency out of it. So you still lose the fight, but you kill more out of it the first time. But it takes you like twice as long to remax the second army because you wasted so much time not macroing. Because then in that time you wasted, they just recover essentially.
Right. Yeah, totally makes sense. Okay, so I think you kind of cleared up a misconception that I had, which was, thinking about, oh gosh, don't you get to Diamond League and kind of end up with this skill imbalance, which is sort of what happened to me. Like I learned the game before your series existed, but I kind of pieced this together from looking at tons and tons of streams and videos and whatnot. This sort of idea, and I got to Diamond. And I went, crap, man, like. I can't micro, I can't multitask, like what did I do to myself? And I was like distressed about it, right? But it sounds like what you're saying is like, yeah, no, that's okay, that's the plan, and there's almost this plan to sort of develop you up out of that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Just to throw it out there, I would say this: the raw macro can get you to Diamond League, pre-fight micro can get you to Masters 1, and maybe even GM if you pick the right builds. Like if you pick Charge the Archon Immortal and you just know how to set it up, totally could get GM with that, with no in-fight micro, but instead just pre-fight micro. And then if you actually understand the concept of multitasking, of micro during a fight and also macroing at the same time, that can take you to limitless bounds of however good you get. But GM is very accessible with pre-fight micro only, like no actual understanding of how to micro during a fight.
Interesting. Very cool. So another thing that you and I touched on very briefly when we were on that Pylon Show episode together is sort of this this concept of like niche situations, right? Just like weird shit that happens on ladder. Somebody does some build you've never seen before, right? And for me, like I'm a guy who I don't have a ton of hours to dump into the game, but I am competitive. I do want to get good.
Yeah.
And this is like another problem, right? Where I love that you're simplifying the game with your series because it makes it so much more approachable for somebody like me. It's like, okay, I'm going to try to make every game fit my mold. I'm going to, play the game this way and approach it and do these things. But there is this thing you hit sometimes where it's like, oh shit, I have literally just never seen this strat before, and I kind of get rolled. Like, do you advise people to like really invest in kind of thinking about why and what you need to do differently, or do you just sort of like take your lumps and say the hell with it and cue the next game?
I think it depends where you are, because this is a huge thing. Okay, this is like a hidden rule of my series that I don't fully always. I don't say like every video like this is a rule that you need to follow, but this is a real thing. Like every time someone asks me for coaching, I always think about this in the back of my mind, and it is this is the rule. Okay, it's if your macro is good enough to play what I would deem as a standard game, it means that, like, for instance, just to explain what that even means, if you can keep a range of anywhere but like up to about 1 to 10% differential of like what is proper macro, if you get anywhere like remotely close to what is supposed to be a proper game, that is a standard game. And then if you can play games like that, then yes, you should definitely look at these oddball situations and try to, like, I wouldn't say you have to like spend hours and hours on them until you figure it out, but at least try to understand why you lost. So if you're like, wait, what? Why did I lose to this cannon rush, for instance? How come this happened? And you're like, oh, okay, well, this map is very hard to do. Like, it's like fucking Death Aura or something. And you're like, okay, so this is actually just a really close main base mineral line area to the cliff. So suddenly cannons are harder to deal with, even though I haven't played against a lot of players who've done this to me. I can think about ways to prevent those from happening in the first place. Maybe I got to change the way I play against cannons on this map specifically, or something like that. And again, if you can play a game that is on the level of standard, of like in the realm of normal, then totally look at oddball situations and figure them out. But if you are a player that's like, if you are like gold, for instance, and you're like, why am I in this weird situation? Like, why? Like, how do I deal with this guy? He went for this proxy 6 racks build, and I've never seen it before, and it killed me. How do I deal with this? And it's just, you know, like, who fucking knows what he did with it? But right. Like in terms of like how the guy would set it up, but it's like super inefficient. And the only reason why the guy lost to it is not because it's like this weird build that has like, it needs to figure out this weird counter to beat it. It's not like it needs some super awkward formula to like solve the equation. It's really just, you didn't macro and you die. You would have died to anything. It doesn't matter that your opponent played weird as well. You just couldn't macro to standard levels. And again, I say this all the time on my stream, but it's like the simple way to explain what I just said. You can do anything in the game efficiently, and it beats anything in the game that's done inefficiently. That's it. That's just as simple as StarCraft 2 works.
Right.
And if your build is at all inefficient, it will lose every time to someone who plays efficient.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess like there's maybe like obvious situations on either side of that continuum. There's maybe some, you know, murky areas or whatever where you're like, okay, because you're in gold, it's kind of hard to know. Like, is this, you know, was I doing a good job? Did my opponent just do a shit version of a weird build and they won? But on average, if they just kind of take that approach, you feel like that will more or less kind of get people going in the right direction.
Yeah. I also have another way to keep people on track too, because I have a lot of ways I like to explain the game. And another one is I like to explain StarCraft 2 in the form of like, it's like a train on a train track. And when the train starts, it's, you know, you start picking up speed, you start going down the train track. And the second you fuck your build up is like the train just gets derailed off the tracks. And the train derails off the tracks. You don't get it suddenly back on the track. It's just gone. You've just gone somewhere else now. And it's just missing at this point. So it's all about keeping your build like up to par as much as you can. And the one thing I think is cool that I've taught a lot of people how to do, which is a really easy way to magnify your problem, is over the years of coaching people, I have learned that literally nobody pays attention to time. Like, there are 3 resources in StarCraft 2. There is gas, there is minerals, and there is time. And everyone knows what gas and minerals are, but nobody fucking knows what time is. And a lot of times what I tell people to do, because like people come to me all the time and they're like, ViBE, I'm doing this Serral build I saw, and it sucks. Why does it suck? And I'm like, okay, well, if we think about what Serral does, let's say Serral does something at 7 minutes and 32 seconds. Like, that's usually, like 7:30 is like usually his quota he hits for like the build he goes for with like a timing or something like that. And the guy who's replicating it is doing it like 11 minutes and 22 seconds. And he's like, why is it so bad? And it's like, well, you're not doing the build. That's why. You're doing a poor man's version of the Serral build, essentially, because it's not even the same thing. So what I do with people is I give them quotas. I give them, like, basically, like, I do, like, full replay packs. And I tell people to do this with any one of my replays. It does not matter if it's replay 17, replay 38, replay 2. I don't care. You pick whatever one you want to compare to. And I have... you use that as, like, I call it the notepad trick, where you literally write down every minute at the exact minute. So minute 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way till I max the first time. Maybe it takes 9 minutes. And you write down at minute 1, how many workers and how much total supply did I have? Minute 2, same thing. Minute 3, all the way, same thing, all the way to minute 9. and then you look at your own replay when you played your game, when you're like, why is my build bad? What's going on? Where am I derailing my build? And let's say minute 1, you go into your own replay now, and you have my replay written down on a notepad where you're like, okay, these are the ViBE timers. Now my game is starting, and I'm at minute 1, and we're tied. Minute 2, I'm behind by 1 worker. Why am I behind by 1 worker? And it's like, oh, maybe it's because I scouted my opponent's base for 9 seconds, and I didn't build a worker during that. I was shift-clicking 30 times around his main base, and I just forgot to build a worker. So it's like, oh, okay, maybe I should change that, fix that, and I can build a worker and not mess that up. And then, I have it all the way to where it's almost like a game of memory where, like, you perfect the early stages to then improve on the later stages, because you can't go out of order, and you cannot have a weak early stage and then suddenly have a strong late stage. If your early stage is weak, it automatically makes everything after it weak as well. So it's about always trying your best to keep up with, like, the quota of minute 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it really magnifies as well where you're going wrong, because people a lot of times don't understand where they die. And so many times in so many coaching lessons, I've done things where someone's like, ViBE, so you didn't get all in at all in your series, and I did. So in my games, I get all in. You never get all in. And can you please make a series about how to deal with all ins? And I'm like, well, you see, I did get all in a lot. You just don't know what happened because I just have more shit than the guy does. And then I go in and I look at their replay, and I look at the one they're comparing to, and I go, look at time. At 5 minutes and 12 seconds, right when the attack hits you, you have 2 stalkers, a sentry, and you have 1 mortal that's like 3/4 of the way done. And you have like 6 gateways that are just sitting there. And in our example, I have 2 gateways because that have been non-stop producing the entire time. We have 8 stalkers instead of 2. We have like 2 mortals instead of 1 that's almost done. And we have a massive army that's here, that's just there at the same exact time of the game. And we even maybe have like 8 more probes. And it's like, where does this all come from? It comes from constantly producing out of your buildings and not just waiting to build and go, oh, my money's high. Build a ton of gateways and then just wait until for a while and randomly check in with a gateway once every 2 minutes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I would give a +1 for this approach too. I've kind of done this. And I find like, okay, I could tell guy or girl out there in the chat sitting there like, man, this sounds like some nerd shit. I don't know. Like, I'm not into it, but like you have such a deeper appreciation for a build after you do this, right? Like, and you could do it with anything, right? Like I've done this with like a GSL, all in or something, some timing or whatever that I see. I'm like, oh, that looks kind of fun, and you get out the Artosis build order notepad and you do exactly this thing, right? And you see so much more elegance to like what you're watching, right? For me, it really has like greatly enhanced watching the game.
Yeah.
As much as it has playing it, because I see the depth there in a way that I didn't before.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're literally like 3 minutes from time here.
Okay. If we go a little over, I don't mind, honestly.
Okay, then I'm gonna not cut this question because I'm curious. So okay, the one thing besides the kind of multitasking that I mentioned earlier that really felt like it kind of got me, after sort of focusing on just build stuff, clean, don't get supply blocked, all this, like pure macro mechanics up to diamond, was I felt like I was also kind of stuck with scouting. So I would sort of do this thing where like I'm just tunnel vision in hardcore, like staring at my base. Okay, what do I need to do? Does this worker need to go there? Whatever, like staring at my money. And I would fight some opponents who would just like take the map, right? Or they'd, mass cloak banshee or, just something weird, right? Because I'm not looking at all. Have you seen people kind of fall into that trap where they're like hyper focused on the things that you say to do and they blow off like literally everything?
Honestly, I think the people who are more hyper focused on just the macro actually do better than the people who try to do like, oh, I'm going to scout as well. Because this is another thing I run into a lot when I coach people, where like I get actually feedback from them one-on-one where they go, okay, so I'm like, why'd you do this right now? Why did you make the build so awkward now for yourself? And what caused you to do this? And they're like, okay, I looked at his base. I scouted. I was scouting for the last like 35 seconds with my thing going around his base. I was trying to see every single building that exists to see what is capable here. And then I thought it meant aggression. I wasn't really sure. Like, because a lot of people, they look at scouting in a way where they go, I have to see it for it to exist. And that's not exactly how scouting should work. That is like super basic scouting in StarCraft 2. What scouting really is in StarCraft 2 is when you see something specific at a certain time. Again, this is where time comes in, right? because a lot of people are like, what the fuck is a clock? I don't know what time is at all. They just disregard it. But if you understand how early something is capable of happening, it rules out everything else. So you'll have people that will already get the information that they needed with something initial. That's what runs into a base. But then they'll literally spend the next 25 seconds running around being like, where's the proxy? Like, there is no proxy because you saw something that ruled it out. Like, where's the proxy? I know it's happening. And it's like, I gotta see, basically need a map hack. See every aspect of the map, every little inch to know there's not a proxy. I know you're doing it. A lot of people look at it that way, where they just over panic and overthink shit. Because the common misconception of a lower level player is, I don't know what my opponent's doing, which means they could be doing anything, like legit anything. Like you're 2 minutes into a game and they're like, they could be making a mothership. I don't know. That could totally be happening right now. So basically, when I have players that do that at lower leagues, it's another form of multitasking, where their brain is currently in a mode where it is at a point where it still cannot fully handle the build that they're trying to do. The efficiency, this is basically playing StarCraft 2 efficiently. They still can't even do that. And now they're trying to incorporate understanding all the intricacies of what their opponent's doing and on the fly reading the build. And the only way they're doing that is if they see literally everything. And I had a discussion with it was interesting because one way, I'll say this in two parts. One way I describe this in a way to make people have a much easier understanding about how to read a build in StarCraft 2 is I go, comparisons are the easiest way to scout in the game. If you compare your build to your opponent's build, it tells you so much if you understand how to do that. For instance, if I'm a Protoss player and I make a pylon and I make a gateway and I scout with the probe that built my gateway and I get across the map, and as I get across the map with that probe that built the gateway, my gateway is now 90% of the way done. And since the gateway is at 90% of the way done, I look at my opponent's base. And let's say I see a barracks that is only 20% of the way done on his ramp, and it's a Terran player. I automatically know there's some shit going on right now. That's weird. It's either double gas, it's proxy racks, it's something fucking weird. Larissa, thank you very much for the raid, by the way. Thank you. It's something weird's going on because where's the discrepancy there for like the last 35 seconds of his barracks being later than my gateway? Like, why is that happening? It's not normal. The only way that would be normal is if he was AFK for 30 seconds. And if that was the case, I automatically win no matter what, because it's just such a disadvantage. So that's the moment where, like, just seeing that Rax going, oh, it's not the same. It's not paced the same as my whatever it's called, as my gateway. So I automatically know now I need to rule out situations. Is this gasless command center first? Is this a double gas super delayed racks into like really fast factory with like a tech lab or something, or a reactor? Is this a like maybe he's only got one gas, and is there nothing else in his main base, and his gas looks like it was put down the same time as my gas, but the barracks for some reason is super late? Most likely you're getting proxied by something. Like, these things all mean something if you know how to read it, if you just compare your build to theirs. And that's the easiest way I can initially try to start wrapping people's heads around scouting, because the biggest problem about people not knowing how to scout is, I think this is the misconception most people have, is they go like this: well, I don't play that race, so I have no idea what they could do.
Yep.
And they go, well, ViBE, should I play random so I know how to play Terran? That way I could just like get so good at Terran that I know what they're capable of, so when I'm playing against them, I know what they can do. I'm like, no, you don't need to do that. That's fucking way overdoing it. All you got to do is you got to know, look at the stat cards of units. This is exactly also, like, if you do what I'm about to say, this leads right into micro during a fight, knowing what is actually capable of what. And if you don't know this, this is super good information. A depot and a barracks and an overlord all have the same mineral cost and the same build time. A barracks and a gateway have the same mineral cost and the same build time. Like, these things are the gases, same thing. Minerals from a drone, an SCV, and a probe all mine at the same pace. Gas from a drone, probe, and SCV all mine at the same pace. The only thing that deviates this is once you start getting into the aspects of mechanical race features, which is Chrono Boost, injects and mules, which changes it a bit. But that doesn't even start from the start of the game. And you don't even have to read the whole game like this. You just have to read somebody's opener to know what they're going to develop into. And a lot of people also freak out about that too, where they're like, okay, well, I mean, yeah, sure, my opponent went for a 1-Rax expand into a factory with Hellions, but what the fuck are they doing now? And it's like, calm down. It's okay. It's literally as simple as like, are they taking a 3rd command center? And if they are, great. If they're not, you're probably going to get attacked. And then other than that, it's like, are they going to go bio or mech? It's not that crazy to like understand what's going on then. The opener is everything because the opener sets the pace for the entire game. Because in StarCraft 2, if you ever fall behind early game, it is really hard to come back from that with the whole train derailing aspect. And it, like, your opponent can also derail your build if you don't know how to read a build. So if you're flowing your build like crazy good and you're like, wow, macroing like really well, suddenly battlecruiser teleports from your base and you had no idea and you're like, oh, I just lost 20 workers. Well, suddenly build is derailed and you're like, okay, well, that sucks. So you should really commit to memory at least the start of the game. What the hell things represent. Command Center, Nexus, same build time, same mineral cost. SCV, probe, drone, build time cost, same thing. Barracks, depot, the Overlord, build cost, all same. Mineral cost, same thing. Gateway, barracks, same thing. Spawning pool is a little bit of a deviation there. It's the Zerg version of it. Also, it's the reason why, just so you guys know, players out there who may or may not know this, if you're like, ViBE, where do they get the balance from a spawning pool costing more?
I know.
Guys,
Cost of a drone.
Yeah, well, that's part of it. That is part of it. But it's also because you don't need to make a Overlord to make a spawning pool, but you do need to make a depot, and you do need to make a pylon to make a gateway to barracks. So a Zerg can just rush the pool fastest because of that. So it costs more to balance it out. And then, like, pretty much everything has a cost, and it is all very similar. So if you don't know the base cost of tier 1 mineral units, learn that. That is the biggest thing you can learn for yourself once you get to upper platinum or lower diamond to understand how to read a game. And that was only the first part about this answer that I was leading into the second part with. And it was to reference a coaching lesson I did, a private lesson I did with someone about a week ago. And he played a game where he goes, hello. He was a diamond 2 player. And he goes, ViBE, how do you deal with all-ins? I don't get it. Like, to please explain. I don't understand how the fuck I died here. And he was playing against he was a Zerg player playing against a Protoss player. And he wasn't not sure how to read Protoss. And the Overlord gets to the base, and it's supposed to see what the initial, like, natural looks like. It's like, okay, is there a Nexus almost done with a core almost done? Is the core already done? And is the Nexus, like, halfway done? Like, these things represent the order of the build, and it also represents the investment of the build. So I was like, when his Overlord did get there, we saw a Nexus that was basically like 95% of the way done. We saw a gateway that was done. We saw a second gateway that was like about halfway done, and we saw a core that was barely started. And I was like, just so you know, this is so much information for you right now that tells you everything if you know how to read it. And if you don't know how to read it, I started talking about telling him how to, like, you know, he should start putting the memory, build time of a gateway, build time of a Nexus, cost of a Nexus, cost of a gateway, what is normal, what is not normal for the timing that he gets there. And basically, he was like, because I initially asked him, can you tell me what this means? And like, if you were just in a game, how would you read this? And he was like, okay, so that could be a, like, you know, Void Ray build. It could be, I don't know, DTs could be proxied somewhere. It could mean he's going for a charge lot all in. And I'm like, okay, you're giving me like these fucking big ranged builds here that it doesn't have to be that at all. It's stats all over the place. That's literally like panic mode. Basically, it's like me saying I could walk outside and an airplane could run into me on the street, or a car could hit me, or a fucking bear could run down the road and chase me down the road. Like, anything could happen. So, by the way, thank you for the raid, Sal. Much love, man. Welcome, guys. Basically, the way I tried to explain it was, I was like, look at your build, okay? What have you done so far? Realistically. I was like, look, your build so far you've built one Overlord, you have built a hatchery, you have built a spawning pool, you have built a gas, and you've built up to like 19 drones at this point. 18 drones, 19 drones. And I can't remember the exact number. It was either 18 or 19. But
Sure, yeah.
I was like, okay, now think about it. If your opponent, in theory, is making drones or probes as fast as you're making drones, realistically, it's very comparable for the first base. Like you never see a Zerg at like 23 drones and the Protoss is at like 17. That definitely doesn't work like that. Like every race has the means to keep up realistically with each other upwards to around 20, and then around 20 it starts maybe deviating a little bit more based on what people want to do. But up to 20, it's usually the same. So it's like it's still so early that probe count or worker count in general should be the same thing. So that cost it just kind of cancels itself out. So let's disregard the worker count. Let's talk about your gas investment, which is 3 drones mining it. And let's talk about the fact that you're on your way to getting speed, and you got a hatchery and an overlord and a pool. So pool is disregarded about the drone cost. 200 minerals for the pool, 300 minerals for the hatchery, 100 minerals for the overlord, and 25 minerals for the gas. And again, you're on your way to getting Zergling speed. So altogether, that's 200, 300, 500 now, 600 because you have an overlord, 625 because you have the gas. So 625 minerals have been invested into the Zerg's build, and he was going for a gas. I was like, okay, what has Protoss done? We have a Nexus, a Pylon, a gate, and a core. That's 400 for the Nexus, 100 for the Pylon, 300 for the gates, so and then 150 for the core. So that's 300 for the gate, 450 now if you add in the core, 850 if you add in the Nexus, and 100 if you add in the Pylon to take him up to 950 minerals of investment there for the Nexus, double gate, core, and Pylon. And I was like, okay, now think about this. The only fucking way this dude can afford this much mineral investment is if he delays his gas entirely and he doesn't mine that shit right away, like as early as you do, because that's a lot of mineral cost right now that you could not afford yourself yet. And also on top of that, there might be a situation where so it might have been like the gas was taken after the second gate or something like that. And also, who knows, maybe he decided to cut a probe here and there to like get the core down faster or something. Like there was maybe a cut cost here and there, because that's more money than you even have right now. And if we go off the aspect of workers mine at the same speed, how could he afford that? Well, if you have a big gas investment in your build and he has more mineral investment in his, it means there's no fucking gas. And if there's no gas, why are you afraid of DTs? Why are you afraid of void rays? Why are you afraid of charge lots? These all cost gas. So it's like, that's where he's like, holy shit, I never thought about it like that. And that makes a lot of sense. And I'm like, and yes, and you can tell this, the order of what he built as well, because when your overlord gets here, the Nexus is like done, which means the build was Nexus, like Pylon, Nexus, gate, core. You can tell what order he's done it too. And if you're afraid of, random shit going on all over the place, the core as well being this delayed tells you there is no tech either. Like that's a super easy definitive point to have there, but it's also investment. Like as early in the game as it was, in the first like 2 minutes of the game, people have to decide what they're going to do. Single, double, or no gas at all changes the build so much as to like how the game develops.
Very cool, man. So, okay, last thing I'm wondering here, and this is a quick one,
Sure.
is, you've talked a lot about kind of, knowing the stats, right? Like this is shit you can just look up. Do you literally do the math, or is it just like intuitive for you? Like you've massed enough games that you can kind of be like, okay, if you have that, and that, you don't have your gases.
It's both. When I first was learning how to play the game, back in like 2010, I actually did the math on it, and I was like, how many of XYZ needs to do what, and blah, blah, blah. Like, what do I need to be able to do this? And these were important things I wanted to know. Like, I was like, how many roaches do I need to two-shot a supply depot if I'm going to bust someone's base? Or how many banes to blow up a depot? Or how many banes to blow up a command center? How many banes does it take to kill a marine? How much does it take to kill this? What's the damage of that unit? How many marines does it take to one-shot a Zergling? Because like that was irrelevant because people like proxy raxed all the time, and you didn't want to ever overcommit to a fight that was bad for you. So these things were numbers that actually have relevancy, and I would say learning them all like right away. Like if you like learn them all tonight, definitely that's not going to happen for you. But build it up over time slowly. Like try to like spend every day you play StarCraft at least learning one more thing. Like learn like the cost of a building or the cost of a unit or the damage of a unit. Like learn one thing at a time, and it will slowly develop over time. And you can also prioritize the examples of units that happen more often. So like if you run into Adepts as a Zerg player 10 games out of 12 games, don't prioritize learning what a Disruptor does. Probably prioritize learning what an Adept does, and then learn other units that are more obscure later. and build yourself up as a player. And this is so much faster than off racing every race in the game and trying to learn every race at the same time.
Oh my god, yeah.
Because
Very cool, dude. I'm inspired. That's I actually really like that. So I'm not one of these guys that like, where like stat memorization comes really easy, but yeah, that makes it sound really approachable.
Yeah, you just slowly build it for sure.
Do you feel like there are any misconceptions people have about your Bronze to JM series? I want to give you the parting shot, at the haters.
Yeah, I do. I have talked. I can name them because they've been very vocal about it. There's two people specifically that I talked to. One more than the other. Nathanius and Rotterdam both showed a lot of discredit for the series, and I understand their points, but I feel like it's not the same thing as what they're saying. And this is why. Okay, I'll try to explain it in a good way, but I'll also try to explain it in a realistic way. That's not going to try and make my series seem like it's all fucking rainbows and sunshine. So their whole argument is as simple as smurfing. That's just literally it. They're like, dude, you're smashing lower level players. Not cool. Pretty lame. It's stupid. Stop doing it. It just ruins the game for other players. And then every time I make a counter argument, it always goes back into that same thing. It's smurfing. It's smurfing. You're literally ruining the game. People are going to quit because of you, because it's dumb. And on top of that, you also encourage other players to do it because you're showing people that you're smurfing, and other people will do it too to follow suit, essentially. And my argument against that would be, I have played games my entire life, and I'm 33, and people have been smurfing since I was 10 or like 9 or 8, or as long as I can remember. People smurf. It's just because it's what they fucking do. If a game is free to play and there is no requirement to you having your attachment to the account, like if you think about a game like World of Warcraft, for instance, and you have to build your character up over months with gear and spend a lot of time on your character, you obviously are going to have a character that's like that strong, and that's just that character. But you're not going to be able to like in one day make that same character again, unless you have like connections or whatever. I know some people are going to find a way to break that statement, but in general, it's a massive time investment until one character is the point. In a game like StarCraft, there's nothing different between you investing thousands of hours on one account and then switching over in 1 minute to a new account. You're the same player because it's you as a player. Right. It's not the game. So if that's how the game works and it's free to play and you can make as many accounts as you want, people are going to smurf. It's just going to happen because it's a way people have fun if they get bored and complacent with what they're doing, especially if you're at the higher leagues and you have really long queue times. Sometimes players go, man, I'm fucking super bored. I've been sitting in queue for 12 minutes. I just want a game. So I'm just going to make another account with a little bit of lower MMR, and I'm just going to start having games again. Like, it happens. It sucks for lower level players. I totally get it. But there is no one person to blame for that. That is literally going to happen until the end of time if games are free to play like this. So that's my argument about smurfing. And the reason why I would say B2GM is a bad example of smurfing is because the series is designed in a way where it's showing a player how they're supposed to play if they want to play efficient, and it does not deviate from that. And I literally lose because of that concept sometimes, because someone is like, I'm a streamer. I get sniped every now and again, and sometimes people would break my series and go, all right, I'm gonna fucking, I'm gonna cheese the shit out of ViBE in a way where I know it'll fuck a series over, and I'm gonna win the game essentially because of that. And I go, okay, well, I know what's happening right now. Even though I know what's happening, I'm not going to go, so if this happens to you guys, just put my brain in your head and play like a GM player for 5 minutes, and then we'll be fine. I go, okay, well, just stick to the plan, and whatever happens, happens, and I end up losing sometimes to that shit. And it's like, well, again, the point of the series you have to remember is, it's not about winning every game, it's about winning more than you lose. It's about advancing yourself as a player, and you will advance if you play efficient, the whole concept of the series. And then that's how it goes. So it's not actually to the extent of what people say it is when they say it's smurfing, because the general theme of what smurfing is you're better than your opponent and you always control the outcome of the game. And no matter what situation you're in, you win because you're better. And I lost like fucking 9 times in lower leagues and like gold, silver, because I'm like, this is what I think silver is capable of. And we lost because someone, killed me because of whatever reason. And obviously, I left it in the videos too. It's there. So I think it's just a guide. It's all I try to make it was for is a guide. And I had way more positive reception than negative. I had literally, like the two I just named, Nathanius and Rotterdam, I fucking love both of them. They're great. Nothing against either one of them. even though they they both highly disapprove of my series, I tried to have discussions with them, and we just kind of agreed to disagree. And we
Sure,
probably
yeah.
will forever, I guess, about that. But I literally see it as a guide, not as a Smurf fest where I just grind out like lower level players and just go, guys, look how good I am. I'm just smashing golds. Sick, huh? You could do it too. So yeah, that's my opinion on the series.
Yeah, very cool, man. Well, I'm glad you got to speak your piece. I know we're over time. Thank you so much for taking a chunk out of your evening to do this.
Yeah, no worries, dude.
It's been very enlightening for me.
Sick, dude. Thanks for talking to me as well. And I know you're gonna hit Masters. I can feel it. It's coming soon.
Hope so, man. Hope so. I'll be on my grind. I'm gonna go memorize some stuff.
Okay, no, you should for real. Do it definitely.
I
Especially
will.
early
I
game
will.
helps a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Totally. All right, man. Take it easy.
All right, have a good night, man. Good talk, and I'll talk to you.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll talk to you next time.
All right, later.
See you, dude. All right, boom. That was a little bit of a conference call there with Aoret. Hope you guys enjoyed it.